everybody, I'm Ben Hoffman. Welcome back to Hoffman Reproductions. Thank you for tuning in with us again today. This time around we are going to be discussing the so-called Fort Meigs belt axe, and how to take this stock axe from a supply house and turn it into a more authentic version. So just real quickly, the so-called Fort Meigs belt axe, there's somewhat of controversy surrounding it. Some say that it never existed and was only created for the reenactment community for that late 1700, early 1800 time period. However, there is some background to this particular pattern of axe that I'm going to share with you here today. The version that you get nowadays, Crazy Crow Supply sells a lot of them, several other places sell them. They're based on an original. However, these are cast, they're not quite the right size, and they don't make for the best axe. They're okay, but they need to be reworked to be more authentic, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do. But as far as a little more of the actual history of this axe, I'm going to go to this reference book here. This is one of the accoutrements books by James R. Johnson, and if you look on page 110, hopefully you can see that, there's a picture of the original upon which all the modern ones are based. Now the text states that it was, it gives the basic dimensions, 4.5 inches by 2 inch on the cutting edge, and then was found on the battlefield at Perrysburg, Ohio, near Fort Meigs, or Meigs that is, in the early 1900s. Some call this a Kentucky pattern belt axe, because it was found in the vicinity across the river. If you go to Fort Meigs, the Maumee River, where some of the Kentucky militia were captured, that's where the original was found. Now you won't find the original in the Fort Meigs collection. I've been there and looked. You can look at their database there online. You won't find the axe. Apparently it was found by a private collector, but it did exist, and it was found in the battlefield area, dated to that time period. So as I said, once again, I'm not going to talk a lot while I'm doing this, but I'm going to show you how to turn this stock type little Fort Meigs belt axe into a more authentic version of the original. So that's up next. Stay tuned. Okay, real quick so I can show you what I'm going to be doing here. I'm not going to be doing a lot of talking, as I said, when we're working on this, but we are going to forge this. This is cast, which isn't correct. The original would have been forged. We're going to lengthen it a little bit to match the period piece, and we're going to widen the cutting edge and the pole a little bit. We're going to drift this eye out a little bit to accommodate a slightly larger handle. I do have the stock handle that we'll be working on that they sent. And then we're going to be reprofiling this cutting edge and then reheat treating it. This is fairly low carbon steel. This was sent to me by a customer, and I've done probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 of these over the years, reworked them to be more authentic, and I found that these heads are fairly low carbon steel, and the cutting edges will not get hard unless you quench them in water. I don't quench the entire thing, just the cutting edge in water, and then draw them back with temper to the correct degree. So we'll go ahead and fire the forge up. We'll get started, and I'll show you how to make a more authentic version of the so-called Fort Meigs belt axe. Okay, so while the axe head is cooling down from the forging, this is the stock handle that they typically send you. It is hickory wood, which is good, but it needs some refinement. I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a reverse taper that you find a lot on belt axes from the 18th and 19th century. In other words, it starts heavy, goes in, and then flares back out. So I'm going to do that on the belt sander and then clean it up with a wood rasp. Okay, so we have the rough dimensions correct now. I've got the length correct, the width on the blade correct, thinned down the taper on the edge a bit, drifted out the eye. I'm going to go ahead and on the bench grinder just refine the profile a little bit. We'll go on to the next step. Alright, so here's the finished axe, forged out, profiled, and filed. Now we've got the forged texture on there. We've increased our length and our width. Going to have a nice cutting edge on there. I'm going to go ahead and get this heat treated now. Because these are fairly low carbon steel, they do require a water quench on the edge. I've tried with all kind of different oils and temperatures, and whatever these particular axe heads are made out of, it's fairly low carbon, so to get it hard we will do a water quench. So we'll get the camera spun around and do the heat treat next. Okay, so we got this axe head all cleaned up and ready to go. It's fit about 95% of the way onto this handle. The handle is also about 95% of the way shaped. I'm going to go ahead and cut a slot down the top of this handle to accept a wedge. Even though there's not a lot of real estate on this thin little eye and the handle portion, I've seen some axes that are on the market that skip this step because there's not a lot of meat here to cut the section out for the wedge, but this is a necessary step. If you just simply drive it on there and don't have a wedge to go in this, you risk the head flying off during use. So if you go slow and careful, you can get a slot cut in this for a wedge, and then it'll hold it nice and secure to the head. So that's up next. I'm going to use a hacksaw for this, just a thin little cut. Alright, well here she is, the finished product, all forged out the way it ought to be, properly handled. I still have to put a little stain and finish on the handle before I ship it out to the customer, but it's a nice little axe now. And it'll actually do quite a number of camp chores in the woods, even though it's small in size. Properly made, these work pretty good. Alright, that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time.